Good evening and welcome back to another edition of Beyond the Backstage Pass. I am your host, Vince Edwards. You may know me from Sound Image Productions. I also have a couple closed roadie groups on Facebook, one called Death by Loadout, another called The Backstage Pass. Come check us out. This evening with me, I have my wonderful, dear, good friend. By the way, you turned in on Good Night. This is going to be some fun. I got the one and only co-host to the stars, my good friend, Kyle Thomas. How are you, brother?
Great, man. Another day, another dog biscuit, my friend.
It's really good to see you. Today, I saw you working away. We had that board completely tore down. We're doing a project for one of our folks we work with, one of the venues. And you had totally disassembled one of the Avid consoles, had every single button, every board, It looked like you really did a thorough job. It looks really good.
Yeah.
It's going to be basically brand new when you're done with it.
Thank you. Yeah, that's probably like my 12th or 13th profile or SC48 that I've stripped apart almost down to nothing. But yeah, I got a little process. We've been hammering that out for our winter maintenance and getting it ready for a client. It's been fun. Yeah,
no, your process seems pretty solid, you know, the way you get to them and tear them down and go through them. And for this customer, this will be a perfect venue board for the venue that it's in. You know, the profiles and the 46s or the 48s are so utilitarian. I mean, they cover a lot of bases, get a lot done. So it's a very logical board to have.
Yeah, and it's cool that you slap a new solid state drive in there. It makes it a little quicker and nice little updates for an old piece of gear that, old piece of gear that you can easily update makes the world of a difference.
It's an older piece of gear, but like you said, you can make them kind of shine pretty and new, and you know, with some of the updates and some of the little adjustments, it's still a very capable piece of equipment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, and we've still been plugging away at this S6L training. I'm hosting a class every Thursday for the Women's Audio Mission, local sound image production staff. Mm-hmm. It's been going really well.
Yeah, so you had quite a gathering today. That was impressive.
Yeah, they're all doing really well. It's nice that, you know, some of my work disassembling stuff has been on a profile, and now all the teaching as well is on the profile. So it's like Avid City over here.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I know we got to get some Digico product in the front of these kids because Digico is such a big player in the game. And we need them to be learned up on that board as well, or particularly the SD series or any of the quantum stuff. So, we'll change gears when it makes sense. But right now, let's get them all tooled up in the S6L area.
Definitely.
And just the basic operations of 48s or profiles, any of the whole Avid line, let's just get that under our belt with the kids and then go from there. I know the boss man, Uncle George, my big brother, likes to make sure everybody's as trained up as possible so we can be successful out there. That's one of the cool things about Sound Image. We're big on training.
Absolutely.
What is this stuff you got over here?
Dude, it looks like Devo sent you some stuff here. Nice, Josh Hagar sent you a nice hat.
Yeah, the Energy Dome.
Got my Energy Dome on. I feel blessed.
That's so cool.
Honk if you're Devo.
Yeah.
And I think it's toil is stupid right here.
It says right there on that sticker, so we know it's true. My good friend, Josh Hager, just an extraordinarily talented guy, keyboardist and guitarist for Devo. Sent those over. He was a guest of ours a couple weeks back. And, of course, the wonderful Devo.
He signed the top of it. Look at that.
That's right. He signed that up there.
What a sweetheart.
Very, very kind. I've had one of those for years back in the days when they first came out with them in Devo. And in a move, I got mine broken up. I relayed my story to him, and he was nice enough to send me another one. You know, they were just on the show. So it was lovely. Him and his brother, Paul David Hager, who's an extraordinarily talented guy in his own right. And so it was really lovely having him on, and we appreciate the gift. Thank you so much, Josh. You're a badass, and we can't wait to see you come through town. I think they're doing a show in May 18th.
New York.
At the rooftop in
Pier 17.
Pier 17 in New York. So you guys get out and go see Devo, man. They're one of the best live bands out there. And super lot of fun. It should be a great show. So go check them out. They're coming up.
Definitely. And before I forget, I want to thank David Morgan for last week's show. It was absolutely incredible hearing from that gentleman. Really nice to meet him. I've never really talked to him, so to hear some of his stories was really inspirational.
It was just a delight. It was an absolute treat to have the one and only Dave Morgan in here. We have some amazing people that come through our guest nights, no exception. You know, we have some really amazing, accomplished people. Dave, it was funny. I was talking to our guest tonight a little earlier at the dinner table, and we were talking about last week's show, and he was like, "Yeah, dude. I mean, my guest tonight's 40 years in the business.
Yeah.
But he was remembering how we would read back in the day, you know, Focus Ion type articles in, you know, mixed magazines and so on about Dave's process. Because just Dave's been around that long, killing it, and just an extraordinarily accomplished guy. And it was an absolute treat having him on last week.
Totally. I get so much from the stories. It's like the main reason why I do this show. I just love hearing the history and the stories of everything.
It's not because of the hanging out with me thing?
Oh, God, no. Jesus.
Oh, damn it.
I get to do that on my off time. I love you to death, so, you know.
You're very sweet. That's very kind. No, yeah, we're really lucky. You know, a lot of these guys we know to some degree or another from, you know, work and history and so on. But here we get to dig in a little deeper and reach in stuff that you might not ask while you're standing out on an event floor somewhere with a guy, and it might not make as much sense. Here, it's specifically what this is. This is a talk show meant to do exactly that. So it's really cool to get in some of these folks' heads, and you know, Dave having such a massive history, and the fact that he can recall everybody that was a part of it, and he's so humble about sharing credit, you know, for how he got here and all of it. I mean, the name checking that he was doing last week was extraordinary. It was really the who's who of 70s and 80s big time rock and roll. And, you know, he's still out there killing it to this day. He's about to go out in, I think, the next month or so. Again, with James Taylor, you know, one of the top performers in the game. So it's just an incredible inspiration to a lot of folks that are like, you can still be in this game at a high function, killing it, and still be, you know, somebody like Dave Morgan just out there 50 years in, still making beautiful music. It's a really inspirational thing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And someone like James Taylor, dude, I want to go fucking see that.
I can't hear you, buddy.
I want to go see that show, man. If he's going to be in our area, we got to go see him.
Well, I think a lot of what he's doing is Europe and Canada. But if he is, I know he'll reach out and we could run over and stop in and say hi, because it's an extraordinary show they're putting on. The production itself got this kind of a forest recreation for the set. I don't know if you've seen the set for that show.
No.
It's James Taylor, Jackson Brown. It's extraordinary, man. It looks like this big giant oak or some kind. I don't know how to explain it, but it's extraordinary. It's
that's pretty cool. I'll have to check it out.
Oh man, yeah. There's some stuff you could easily see. You know, the Jackson Brown James Taylor tour. Check it out, man. The production on it is absolutely breathtaking.
Will do.
But James Taylor and Jackson Brown, you know, they're not going to come at it halfway. You know, between the two of them, they got over 100 years of experience in the business. You know, so.
Wow, it's crazy to think about.
It is kind of nuts, but it's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Absolutely true that, you know, between James Taylor and Jackson Brown, there's like 100 years of pure badassery right there in the rock and roll game. No matter, you know, what decade it was, they were putting their mark on it. That's pretty impressive.
I couldn't agree more, man. And I'm looking at these beautiful lights that you got Alan Pettibone to throw out for us. We just wanted to say we're putting this up in solidarity with Ukraine, and wanted to just send some love and some caring words and wisdom their way.
Seems like a pretty nutty situation going on across the world right now. We're a little unsettled, a little justice doesn't seem to be prevailing. At the same time, we've got a strong hope that somehow it does. And, you know, I had the lighting guys, I told them, hey, why don't we throw up some blue and yellow to represent for Ukraine, because these people are innocent, man. They're getting their asses handed to them by an evil dictator. So we did it, and the lighting guys did some stuff here. I think we got half blue, half yellow over here. You know, on a set this close, it's hard to get more creative than that. But Alan, our lighting guy, who's an extraordinary cat, dialed us in, and we're real happy about it. So thank you, Alan, and good luck, you people over there. We really wish the best for you. It's got to be a very hard situation.
Yeah, many blessings.
Well, there's that, you know, and a lot of, we got friends that have canceled tours up in that part of the world. You know, the Y&T and Iglesias guys are going through, there was a batch of folks, a lot of metal
Legend
things.
Store, shit. That was going to be their first stop after the Vegas residency.
And they're just saying, nope, we're not going to go do that and sponsor that behavior. So, you know, but that's a pretty well trotted out space for touring. that part of Eastern Europe, and then of course Russia is probably more friendly than it's been in a long time to bringing tours in. But no, I can't imagine anybody worth seeing is going to be playing in that area anytime soon. So, but it puts a little dent in the game itself, and some folks that were probably looking forward to that work are gonna miss it. So, but it's the right thing to do. So our best of luck to all you folks out there. We want to, of course, send a little shout out to the Pat O'Douls and the John Del Rios, and of course the wonderful Charlie Zaricki. Appreciate you guys very, very much. Thanks for tuning in, you guys. We do this every week. All right, guys, and Scott Cheney and everybody else, you guys, we superly appreciate you being here. Kyle, we good, baby?
Absolutely. You got another nugget for the audience.
Yeah. I'm very lucky. We've got a gentleman in here. Thanks for being here tonight. Thanks for doing this, Mikey Octopus. I want to get his octopus on the stage somehow, too.
I'll put it on your head at the end of the night.
No, we didn't say anything about touching my hair. There's no hair touching. What the hell? You on drugs, boy? No, that ain't happening. All right, let's all behave. We're going to behave like we're civilized and we're raised right. All right, listen, man. Thank you. Thank you. I want to get right to it. I have a dear friend, a guy that we've been tooling around with, me and my brother, God, better on 40 years or so, give or take. This young man has really done it all. I've always understood him as the journey guy. To me, we talk about my good friend, Alan. We just, the journey, journeyman. What he really is a guy that can do pretty much anything in our business. And this is really true, from lighting to monitors. He's really largely known as one of the better guitar technicians on the planet. He's really, we're talking about, he's been the guitar guy for Neil Schon of Journey, Satriani while he was with Greg Kihn. He's mixed for Doc, and he's made, the list is just too long. It's just a huge list of accomplishments. So we're going to have to get into it and pick it apart one at a time. It is my dear, dear good friend, brother to the show, brother from another mother, Alan Kraft. How you doing, my friend?
Doing well. Thank you, Vince, for having me.
It's such a pleasure. I know we were trying to get you on earlier in the show, and you had other business, and what did we say to you? We'll wait until you are available because you're just worth it. I forgot to mention that you were really largely very responsible for the mixing of these two albums for Mr. Neil Schon, one of the best guitarists in rock and roll, of course. Remind me the names of these. I can't read, buddy.
The one on
Electric World.
Electric World.
Yes, sir.
That's our East meets West composition.
Very cool.
And the other one there is Piranha Blues, three-man blues band out of and that one was recorded 16-track, 30 IPS on a Studer. The other one was 8 banks of 8-track ADATs rolling 64 synced.
Old school, baby.
This gray hair that I have came from that experience. I swear to God.
I so believe it. I can't wait to put these on the house system. I know, of course, Neil is a monster as a guitarist, and your abilities in the recording studio are legendary. So I bet you this is extraordinary.
Thank you very much.
It is absolutely the truth. Let me ask you further. I know, God, I was just got to be in the early 70s. You came right out the gate. You always had an interest in mechanical things, electric things.
Yeah.
And one of the first things you ever did, you started building your own light rigs. Yep. 75, I think, 1975, 77, between there somewhere. Did you not build 150 par 28?
Yes, I did.
Can you explain what the hell that was?
Okay. Well, lights are easy. They're switches and dimmers and bulbs, Yeah. So with the help of my dad, we built a box that had 5 150-watt par 38s in 10-pound coffee cans with the bottoms cut out and porcelain sockets all wired in, going to a multi-core zip cord with Edison plugs on the end to a little switch box that I built. And I had 2 banks of those and 2 stands that I built in metal shop. So that would have been 8th grade, about 8th grade. So that was probably 69, 70 when I built those. And then carted those around, did the dances at the junior high and with those, started renting them out to band, and it was all downhill from there.
Because I think me and you met up not too far after this, and I think we'll come out about this a different way, but I was lucky to follow behind you and get some work as you gave it up and went to the next bigger thing. Then I would sneak in and take over for your work. And I swear to God, if it wasn't for you, I don't think I would have had my career, because you led the way, you and my brother, of course, so very much. I wanted to ask you about, I think it was 77. You worked with Tower Records. Is this Tower LA?
No.
It's San Francisco?
No, this was MTS Incorporated. Martin Sokolov, one of the partners with Mr. Solomon, who started Tower Records.
And he started in Sacramento?
Yes, yeah, the Tower Theater.
Yes, sir.
His family owned that, the Tower Pharmacy.
Yes.
And so he set up with a rack of 45s.
That's right. That's where it all started. With some 45.
Went from there. Well, the cabinet shop was in Sacramento, and we made all the cabinets for all the stores. And I was hired on there just out of high school as a carpenter / electrician / shipping clerk, which eventually led me into logistics, which is what we do now. But that was the basic start of it. And in that crew of guys was a couple of musicians that I'd been palling around with all through high school. The light boxes that I mentioned earlier, those were built primarily so I could work with that band. And so it was all sort of one thing leading to another to lead to another and another, and so on.
Isn't that always the way? Well, let's go back to the beginning of your career, because there was some really formative stuff that you got involved with. Let's talk about Y&T, Yesterday and Tomorrow, or is it Today?
Today, yesterday.
That was a really strong band. I mean, the player, Y&T kicked ass.
Absolutely.
That was just an extremely good band. I'm not sure, maybe my memory's failing me. This is, I want to say 81, 82. I don't remember them ever really getting the due that they deserved. I know a lot of people came out of there and went to other places, but
I would agree with that. The Earthshaker album, which was the one that I was tapped to do front of house on, was a club gig, a club tour that was supposed to break that album from A&M. Okay, so as we're traveling around, doing in stores, doing radio promos and such, the stacks of records that I was seeing that were getting moved was the Go-Go's.
That's right.
And
at the same time, it was huge. We got the beat.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. Yeah. And they came up at the same time, and as it was in those days, we got the beat, got the nod from the people, and that's kind of the way the whole world started to shift there, and away from the heavy
guitar
rhythm-oriented rock to more pop-ish kind of music.
Yeah, kind of tragic. At the same time, I think the Go-Go's definitely deserve their due. They just got into the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely.
You know, they put down their thing. It was definitely I think a lot of people don't understand where the Go-Go's come from. You know, like Belinda Carlisle, their singer, was the original bass player for the Germs in '77.
Sure.
So I mean, she really does come from an honest punk rock background. Whatever they turned into, certainly not punk rock.
Right.
The Go-Go's, but they had that, I think, that energy to it, but certainly kind of an LA surfer, bebop kind of thing too. But they really own that lane, and that was an extraordinary album. They certainly got in a lot quicker than people say, than Judas Priest, who have 15 great albums. But we won't say there's any fairness in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Moving on from Y&T, which again, if you don't know who Y&T is, you really should check them out. They're an extraordinary band. To a band where I always thought Don was pretty interesting, but mixing with on the Breaking the Chains tour with the great Dawkins.
Yes.
Talk to me about your experiences.
And George Lynch.
Yeah.
And Jeff Pilson.
Yeah.
And I had the drummer's name in my head. Just Andy. Forgive me. The Jerry Pfeffer called me for that.
SOS.
They were having, they being the band, was having issues with their the guy they had out with them.
Yeah.
And so he got sick, I believe, went home. I got tapped. I met him out there, and my the one thing Don said was, make my voice loud. And I did. And that's what we did.
Yeah, Donnie Dokken, you know, he's a crack up of a guy. He's definitely born rock star, a unique guy. Did you enjoy your time out with Don and the boys?
They were very, very fun to deal with.
Yeah.
I had known Jeff from before, from the Randy Hansen group,
right.
Which is how I got recommended into the gig. And it was band and crew on one bus. This wasn't a two-bus rig. This was, you know...
Old school.
Old school.
Yeah, that's right.
And, it was... some fun was had by all.
Good. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. Very cool. It was a fun time. I mean, we're talking about, I think, in the Dokken case, that's probably 82, 83.
That's 83, yes,
and
sir.
That was, yeah. If you can remember, you probably weren't having as much fun as we were. This is a band that we share deeply in common, my brother as well. A very formative band for Northern California. A band that you really had on lock. Two really great guitarists that you kept care of and you stage managed for the great Eddie and the Tide.
Right.
This is a band that, you know, you did this job. When you left, I took over the job.
That's right.
My brother was frying. You were doing this with Roz, huh? Was he in the band still? What was the kid, the original keyboard player?
Kaz McCaslin.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Were you in it with him?
Yes.
Yeah. So he came out of the band. You went away. He came out of the band. They got Chris Rieger, and I came in. What was your experience with Eddie and the Tide? Did you get along with Steve?
I love Steve.
Yeah, he's a sweetheart of a guy.
Steve and Johnny were probably two of the nicest. Steve, Johnny, George were three of the nicest guys as a group to deal with. The drummer, he's just a nut.
Are we talking Scotty?
Scotty's a nut.
Yeah, he's a drummer. He's a total drummer. I think he might have died at least twice while I was with him. Yeah.
No, he's a sweetheart also. And Kaz, the whole group, it was just like your buddies, you know, in the garage. And we brushed greatness.
That's right.
We had Eddie Money produce an album.
Yeah.
We had a little label interest, Elektra, I believe.
That was Atco, Atlantic Records.
Thank you.
Atlantic Records,
and but as far as local here in California, we crushed.
We owned California.
Yeah,
and we could take it as far as Reno down up in Oregon. Yeah, we owned the West Coast pretty fucking outright.
Yeah, we did support with Huey for his sports tour, doing the colleges in the Pacific Northwest, and they just loved us. You know, I mean, Eddie was. And he still is to this day a really good songwriter.
An extraordinary songwriter.
Yeah,
that's right.
And that. Again, going back to the 80s, you know, it was the roll of the dice and who picked up on what. And if you got a little bit of traction in one market and could transfer that to another, then you might be on your way.
Yeah.
You know, and it was all about radio, you know. And,
totally about radio.
And their management, the Keystone family, was
Kronos.
tied in with KSJO and KRQR.
KMBY.
Yeah. And it was as the music business is printed in the textbooks today.
Yeah, that's right.
It ain't like that today.
No, sir.
No, but that's how it was, and it was glorious.
It was a lot of fun. I mean, it was real rock and roll. You know, there was groupies and the periodic table and all kinds of real, you know, like stuff they put in the movies now that looks kind of like that probably didn't happen. Actually, that was kind of happening. Yeah. That band had access to that type of following. It was that time in the world. Right. And there was still a real demand for the lover boy kind of rock and roll bands, you know. True. The real chugga-chugga kind of, not too hard, not too, maybe like REO Speed. I don't know what category to put them in, but they certainly on the rock and roll thing. They had a couple, they almost did really well with at least two of their songs, One in a Million and Running Wild, Running Free. That's I think both songs had almost made it to gold. Right. And so they were scratching right at the door, and then you went away and went to Greg Kihn. That's right. And Greg Kihn, of course, who's had a revolving cast of characters as his guitarist because he's Greg Kihn. I know that when you got with him, and then I took over Eddie and the Tide as their guitar guy, you took over for Greg Kihn with Satriani. Yeah. Now, it's Greg Kihn. This is conspiracy, right? He's in the heart of his fame. He's just done Jeopardy. Is he just getting past it? Is it before it? Where are we at in his history?
Okay, I touched through Greg Kihn a couple of ways. First, I came in as doing guitars in stage work, and eventually moved off on to doing lights and that. And when Satriani came on, he had just released another album. This wasn't Conspiracy, but Joe's Surfing with the Alien album was just about to come out. And one of the best things I loved through that whole little tour was taking Joe's tape.
Yeah.
It was a cassette tape, Al.
Yeah, that's right.
And putting it in the club PA and running that and watching all the club people just stop and stare at the speakers.
Like,
and
what the hell is
mouths
that?
drop open.
Yeah.
Like, what in the heck is that?
Yeah.
And it's Joe Satriani.
Yeah, he was a badass.
Oh,
Extraordinary guitarist.
absolutely. And watching the people like that told me right then, he ain't gonna be our guitar very long. He gonna be gone.
Well,
and he was.
You know, and you're not wrong, but you know, again, and I know you moved on from that. You were, I think, at the same time you were working at Nocturne a batch too.
I went on to just after Greg Kihn. That's when I picked up the bench tech job working for Nocturne. Val Daux, John LaBelle, Herbie Herbert, John Villanueva, of course. But I started off there just making, fixing intercoms, light dimmers, fixing the occasional console switch and so forth. And we ended up working the U2 Joshua Tree tour and fabricating the Scrim color changer. That was my project.
It was a huge contribution.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was huge. I mean, that tour was it was kind of the new wave of big touring.
Yes.
There was a kind of little, what happened with the Aerosmith and Led Zeppelin type things and Day on the Green type shows. Then there was this weird pause and there was smaller sheds and things like that happening. And then bands like U2 and Voodoo Lounge and, Spider, Dave Bowie came out and brought back the big shows.
Right,
And,
with the stuff hanging from the rafters, with the more of a show element to it than just strictly, four guys, amps, drums. And
No, much more of a production.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and then you mentioned Satriani with Greg Kihn, which, we're talking about Joe Satriani. You went away from that, like I said, moved to Nocturne. I moved into the Greg Kihn position as their guitar tech, stage manager, monitor guy.
Right.
And at that time, it was with the great Jimmy Lyon, which, of course, is Tina Turner's guitarist, Eddie Money's guitarist. Once again, Greg Kihn got a total monster.
Absolutely.
Just like a friggin' gunslinger as a guitarist. So, that's always been what always amazed me about Greg was his ability to get these people to play with him that were, just extraordinary people, like really true badass. Yeah, huge talents.
Yeah.
So what a legendary cat. We just went through, I had this question for the U2 thing, because how do we not talk about the U2 thing? But we did that, and that was such a remarkable tour. Joshua Tree was a huge, really a national event, if you remember how big that was. That was some next level shit.
To talk about that color changer just for a second, that was something that was scribbled out on the back of a napkin.
Yeah.
John LaBelle had been told what the LD and the band wanted to see, in terms of the design, and he came to me and said, "Okay, let's do this." And I had to re-engineer the machine to work the way it was originally designed to, using just a notch on the gel stream, because the light intensity from 9 Mol-Fay lamps was just so intense that it blew out the LED detector on the thing. For all the non-geeks out there, I'm sorry. We'll wrap this up in a second. But just the environment that the thing was in was totally off the charts in terms of what the machine was designed to do, and we made it do it.
Yeah.
We had to go to NASA suppliers to get the tubes.
That's awesome.
To wind the gel on, because they were so hot up in those when they were turned on for 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah.
They'd get 800 degrees easily.
Extraordinary.
You know, and the plastic couldn't melt.
Yeah.
When you wound the gel back on it, it would the first ones would twist like that, and the whole thing just went to shit.
Yeah, no, that must have been a huge technical problem to get
yes,
past.
absolutely. And when we finally got it to work, you know, we made 40 of them and trucked them around the nation for a couple of months.
Yeah. And it was a huge, my memory of that was it went over huge. It went really well.
Yeah.
I mean, that was considered a big part of that show.
Yeah.
Yeah, really fascinating. Good job with that, my friend.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, let's move on from badassery 86 of the U2 Joshua Tree Tour thing to what you did for Michael Jackson's Bad Tour. I mean, that tour needed what you brought to it. I know you built the stage effects on that. Can you tell us about that?
Well, again, this goes into the here's a scribbled drawing. Please make this happen.
How many things have we built off of a bar napkin?
All of them. I don't think I've ever gotten a real plan for anything, except for maybe a house I built. But, you know, the goal there was to put the remote control of the Martin fogger as far away from the Martin fogging machine as possible. They actually wanted the head to be up in the truss, which was one thing, but to separate the head from the tank so that the tanks could be filled and maintained and such was the other issue. So between making those mechanical modifications on the feed tube for the smoke for the haze in the first place, and then extending the control surface, which was straight up switches and buttons, so it wasn't anything digital at that point. It was interesting, just something you had to work through to get the distances right. Once they had the truss design, you know, the stage design laid out, then it was fairly straightforward in terms of measuring and
Again, though, this is a mammoth undertaking. This is one of the biggest tours of that year, if not the biggest tour of '87. Had to be the Bad Tour.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, it was massive.
Yeah, well, Benny Collins, rest his soul.
The great Benny Collins.
Yeah, was
production manager.
Was production manager on that, and this was another Nocturne Herbie Herbert production.
We'll come back to Herbie because I think people need to understand who the friggin' Herbie Herbert is. I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, come on. Okay, so I'm sorry. Go ahead. You were saying.
Yeah. Because it was a monumental landmark production like that, it was imperative that we succeed. You know, there's a lot of parallels that are drawn in from the military to what it is we do, and the biggest difference between the two is that we leave people loving and laughing, you know, and in a totally different mood than those other guys. Those other guys have a different job.
Yes, they do.
And fortunately for us, you know, we get to do what we get to do everywhere, and to that end.
It's interesting too how much technology actually comes to the military that transfers into the you know, the domestic world.
Absolutely.
I mean, Ramlash for us, there's so many technologies that we use that come straight off aircraft carriers that come out, you know.
Sure.
It's absolutely nuts.
Well, between that and power distribution, you know, it's all in there. We all use their technology.
We're both into putting on big shows, apparently.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, to talk about Herbie for a moment.
I love that man. He was such a trip.
He's absolutely a inspiration and mentor to myself and many other stage techs that I know.
Yes, sir.
The first time I met him, he was sound man for Santana.
That's
and
right.
I was working for a Latin disco rock band, Jimmy Goings and Santa Esmeralda. And
good memory, man.
We were crisscrossing around and beside them and so forth, but Herbie paved the way.
Yes.
Not only with his work with Santana and ultimately with Journey.
Yes, sir.
But the whole building of the production element between he and Bill Graham.
Yeah.
I think they really set the tone and made the template, and then allowed other promoters to reproduce that template as it was shown to succeed. You know, because Herbie liked to tell the tale of, you know, back in his day.
Right.
You know,
most of his stories started out like that.
The universal question, "Where's catering?" was here's $5 and change. The candy machine's down the hall.
That's right.
And I actually had that experience with a promoter in Texas way back when. So when you roll into a place and you've got breakfast set up and waiting for you,
Pretty special.
and you've got dinner when you need it, and you got a little something for the bus on the way out the door, you thank Herbie Herbert and Bill Graham for that.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, you're 100% right. You know, when unfortunately he passed recently, I want to say in the last many months.
October.
Yeah.
October 25th.
And I wasn't able to make it to his last load. I very much wanted to be there. We were doing a gig on that date, and it was in December. I think they did it at the Fillmore.
Right.
That sound right? Yeah. And everybody and their mother showed up. And the last time I saw him was at Benny's last load out, Benny Collins' last load out, and he gave a speech that, you know, he's up on the stairs at the Fox, and, you know, by then he had gotten really big. You know, he's a big man.
Yeah.
And I swear to God, he just brought us all to tears. You know,
Absolutely.
he had that ability. There was something about her where he could make you laugh in the same breath and you could cry in the next. You know, the wisdom that was stuffed into that human was extraordinary. It was really, to me, like you said, you know, like the great BG, you know, Bill Graham. He was just a history of rock and roll as I understood it. And what a fascinating guy. And that brings us to BGP. You spent time with BGP.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, again, we can't overemphasize. We're talking about Bill Graham Presents. Bill Graham, these people are instrumental in what we understand as the big rock show. Now, you just made a very good point about how he kind of was allowed it to export his model off to other promoters, you know.
That's very true.
Yes, sir.
The one thing I have just recently come to learn about Bill Graham in particular, but Bill, Herbie, Bill Thompson, the Starship's manager.
Yes.
Again, another departed friend. But they recognized the talent that was around them. They paid attention to the hands that were working their shows. They paid attention to the roadies that they hired for their crew. They paid attention to the smallest of details.
That's right.
And this is what sets guys like them apart from the rest of us.
Visionaries.
Well, visionaries, and then also detail-oriented to understand that there is a need for that sort of focused attention in order for the whole to be pure, if you will.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And the one time Bill Graham called me by my first name was in an elevator as I'm holding a stack of equipment after a Christmas party at the old Waldorf. And he and his family are going downstairs to go to the car. And I just happened to be in the elevator with the gear, and they said, "Alan, stay in there, take it down, you're going with Bill." And okay. And
he was a little bit of a scary cat.
He can be a scary cat.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you're running something like that, you're not going to be a pushover.
No.
And he had learned that early on, you know, how to pull that out and dial it in as he needed. And on the way down, he had called me by my name and asked me how things were going, and engaged me in small talk. I was a little stunned because I didn't think he knew me from the lamppost.
Yeah.
But apparently I had made an impression, and he did. And as it was, I was able to work between Bill Graham Presents and his competitor, the Keystone family, and walk back and forth between gigs, often on the same night. You know, I'd load in at the Kabuki or be at Wolfgang's and then do a load out at the Stone, you know.
It was one of the last times I saw Bill was at the Kabuki doing Slayer and Venom in 80-something. It wasn't too long before he passed. He passed shortly there. It was extraordinary. You know, you can't hear Bill Graham's trying to talk to you, and Venom is letting off pyro in the fucking main room, and like I got nothing. I'm just deaf, dude. But yeah. So it's like when he called you that, or he said, "Alan, I need you to do this." That's one of those. That was probably a moment you will never forget. He was a very imposing, it was like Benny. Benny, he was just somebody that commanded respect. He knew his business, and you knew just being around him was going to make you better at what you did.
Absolutely.
And that was, I mean, how precious is that? Yeah. I wanted to say that you were kind enough to bring in some lovely gifts that, you know, I'm blind as a bat, man.
Well, it's okay. I'm a boomer.
It's okay. I'm a boomer. It's Henry Winkler. Is that
Henry Winkler, absolutely.
It's a picture of Henry Winkler.
Yeah.
It says, you know, the fonts, you guys.
Yeah.
It says, okay, I'm a boomer. Yeah. It's okay. I'm a boomer. Yeah. We got a whole bunch, buddy.
Becca makes buttons, y'all. On Facebook.
I got a whole bag of them.
Awesome.
You want them? PM me. We're gonna hang them. We're gonna hand them out to our very best audience members. Thank you for that, my friend.
Sure.
You're a dear friend, and I appreciate you more than you can know. Let's move into the 90s. The 90s were a very productive, interesting time for you. You know, I know you worked with Neil Schon Productions. Again, that's the guitarist for Journey, and really, that is Journey. Let's just say, I mean, Journey is Neil Schon. Right. There's a bunch of other guys that help him do what he does, and we couldn't get it done without him. And he would admit to that immediately. But at the end of the day, it's like Lars Ulrich and Metallica. There's just guys that own this operation and run it, and that's what Neil Schon does. You spent over a decade making magic happen with him, like I mentioned here. His beautiful albums. I'm going to blast this in the shop. I know if you did it, it sounds perfect. What was it like being out with Neil? How was he as a boss? Now, be honest. We know that Neil can be a little bit prickly.
Well,
but he's also extraordinary. He's like a perfectionist.
Let's just state for the record that Neil, like every other artist of his caliber, has expectations that some people cannot deliver.
Very great way to put that.
And he has expectations that he may not be able to articulate.
That's also a good point.
But our job as technicians is less technical and more ethereal. Yeah, it's more of a mind game than anything else. When I was in the midst of the Journey resurgence after we recorded the Trial by Fire album with Steve Perry and had moved on to Steve Augeri and performing the hits and new songs as those came along.
What is this era? Are we talking about like 97, 98?
97, 98. That's exactly right.
Yes, sir.
But the thing that I noticed about Neil is his work drive, work ethic was like no other. When I say that guy plays more in a month than some people play in a year, I'm not kidding.
Yeah, you're serious about that.
I am absolutely.
He is always noodling. He's always the man loves his acts.
Absolutely. Yeah. When after I rebuilt his studio, and after he found out that I could handle a guitar. Yeah. And after he found out that I knew my way around a soldering iron, and I was that guy with the U2 stuff.
That's right.
He had me build a rig, and we built a rig that had loops. We had digital Echoplex. We had synthesizers. We had the Roland GR system. All through it.
Very cool.
And we had it synced up with a rhythm box, so he would pull in the studio, would pull the door down behind him. He'd go in the room, turn the rig on, set up a beat, start looping, start noodling, play, noodle, maybe find something. And through all of this time, we had cassette running. You know, this was the 90s. Everything. That's where we were recording, and we would record all day. He'd walk out of there with 6 or 8 tapes, both sides, loaded with stuff. He'd listen to them on the way back to his place, and we did that 5 days a week, maybe 4, but most days of the week. And it was like that days, weeks on end. And this is where he comes up with his material. He'll come up with a riff, he'll come up with a hook, he'll have a chorus. It'll be bits and fragments like that. And these guys these guys, John, Neil, Ross, would then get together, and they would start cooking, and it really is a lot like cooking, chefs putting their little bit in and making it. And it didn't matter who the artist was in our studio when we were doing this, but that format of get together, noodle, jam, develop, that's universal. Tracy Chapman did it.
Yeah.
She came in and rehearsed her New Beginnings album, auditioned her whole band there. And through that entire process, I did exactly for her what I had done for Neil previously, which she'd come in, we'd start the tape rolling, and it would go on like that. And that's essentially how she created that band, that album, and a couple of subsequent albums after that.
Did you expect, because she was an outlier. I mean, the album that you're talking about, that she came up from that process, really blew up. I mean, that was an extraordinary album.
Yeah.
There's so few albums that we get to be lucky enough to work with, or even own as people that enjoy music.
Absolutely.
That you can listen to every song.
Yeah.
That album you're talking about from Tracy Chapman, was such a
stunner.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I got the little hair and goose
I'm doing the
blush
same.
right now thinking about it. How remarkable that was. So was it enjoyable working with Tracy?
She was
Yeah, I know.
No. Let me say this. She was a very class act.
Yeah.
I have nothing but the highest respect for her.
Very
her
understated
artistic
lady.
process. She very sensitive.
Yeah.
That's not one you make. What's the word? I'm drawing a blank. You don't make silly commentary.
She didn't suffer fools.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. But I mean, what an intellect. There was just so, like you said, I think to write an album like that, particularly the first one, and like you mentioned, the sophomore effort was pretty amazing as well. She's tapping into a lot of tough stuff there. I mean, that was some real deep down shit. And I think it hit a universal chord because that thing just spread out.
Right.
And you guys, when that came out and just went, it was almost ubiquitous. If you remember, that thing was everywhere. I wanted to go scooch back just a little bit about Crew Chief and then the kind of, it's like Aerosmith. So many bands have been lucky to come, and Aerosmith did the Toys in the Attic and the rock stuff, and then they kind of were drugged out and missing, and then they came out and Love in the Elevator. A lot of bands are able to. We've done the Starship, we've done Jefferson Starship, we've done Jefferson Airplane. We're about to have an interaction, I believe, in a month or so with Starship again here.
Right.
And we know we just lost Marty. So bands are lucky sometimes to get another incarnation. Journey being one of the biggest bands. I mean, Jesus Christ! Journey at their height was. I mean, really, they really came out and showed the way at how you put on you take over a stadium and make it your own.
Absolutely.
And so when they came back around this 97 incarnation, which was pretty friggin' great, that was you, Crew Chief, and that whole thing. Now, I mentioned to my guest host over here, I got to tell the people because they won't know this. I know what you're like as a crew chief. You are a man. This is a guy you do not want to piss off on.
I was told
he will be so
not
far
to upset
up your
you
ass.
if we do the gig together.
Apparently, I got the name Alien
Multiple heads.
because of that guy who would bust out of your gut and land on your face and ruin your day.
Yeah. You didn't want to not come correct to your stage, and we always respected the hell out of you. That seemed like you were really in your milieu. It seemed like such a sweet spot for you. I always say you had like a little bit of Benny in you, a little bit of Herbie in you. You're taking the best qualities from some real legendary guys.
I really thank you for saying that. I really tried to. It is the pinnacle of my career. I think my time working with Steve Perry and that formation of the band was something I'll never forget. To be involved in their process was a privilege and an honor, and it was not easy.
No.
Not easy, because there was just two of us, Rendell Ivers and myself, taking care of the band at that point.
Yes, sir.
Ross's brother, Brett, would come in as drum tech for us. We got Scott Garrison, who's now the DW rep, in to help us out for a few things. This is when I brought RJ DeSanto along. He had been monitors for us with Todd Rundgren when I was Todd's guitar tech for Individualist. And as we've talked, I think the theme of our meeting here tonight is that someone is always following you. You, the tech out there, maybe mentoring another tech who's a couple of years behind you or a decade behind you. I'm the buggy whip salesman here in the house tonight. These guys are all digital, and I probably couldn't turn the damn thing on.
You know, the funniest thing is, it's like this. It's like, you know, I'm somewhere in the transitional spot, but still closer to you by far.
Right.
He's totally.
Yeah, no,
he's so ones and zeros. These youngsters.
Speaking to him out there, I understand. But the guys with Journey were inclusive.
Yeah.
It's exclusive because not many people rise up to
that level,
to be in that room at the same time.
That's right. Gives it kind of a family quality, though, doesn't it?
It is, and whereas like Neil Schon, Steve Perry is a force of nature.
Force of nature.
That man can detect the inflection of a take. He can remember the inflection of a take 3 takes ago and tell you that's the one he wants.
Yeah.
And if you don't know which one he's talking about, it's not going to be an easy day.
Yeah.
You know, but by the same token, when he gets that performance laid out in front of him, whether he's compiling it from 6 tracks or 6 takes across 6 tracks, once he gets that single performance down, he will learn it and sing it, and that is the performance that you will hear on the record going forward. It is amazing. Absolutely amazing.
I've found him. He was, you know, we say this once in a while here, and we don't get on often to do this because there's just not a lot of it. But he was born to do what he did.
Absolutely.
And he, you know, I found it really interesting when they were inducted because that was a band that absolutely needed to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Now, I don't put a lot of weight in that organization, but there's some folks that have been honored by such a largesse.
Right.
And Journey is definitely one of them. And when they got brought in, you know, Neil's larger than life, and they had their current singer come in and do the work, and then they did, you know how when they induct a band, when they bring a band in, they do 3 or 4 of their biggest songs. Right. Might even be more of a melody, and then the band talks to the audience and thanks everybody, and Steve Perry rolls out. You could still see there was a little bit of that blood between them, that animosity. But Steve came out and of course Neil did too, and you know the gang came out and we're professionals. They understand the game completely. But I just found it to be really interesting that he chose not to. And I'm sure it was a discussion. There's no way you can't say, hey, we're at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame tonight. I've got Steve Perry in the mix, right? You know, and not consider putting him in front of a song at least.
Well. From what I know about the situation that presented itself when the band reformed and we were waiting to go out on tour as Journey with Steve Perry, and as we noticed with his performance that he did with the club band, I think there's a YouTube performance of it. Voices change.
That's right.
And
look at Lindsey Buckingham.
Well, it's just a function of growing old.
As simple as that.
It's when you get past a certain age, your body changes, and your muscles, whether it's your biceps or your throat, it can all change.
That's right.
And the strain and stresses of singing in those original keys is a very, very difficult thing to do. Whether you're 25, 35, 45, or 55, But let me tell you, if you're 65, it's going to be a whole lot different.
It's really, really, really true. Yes.
You know.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong. It's very hard to. I don't think people understand. Maybe they do. How hard it is to reproduce something that you did 20 years ago.
Absolutely.
Now we've seen. We talk about a couple of artists that are able to do this and always blow my mind. The great Tony Bennett, Smokey Robinson. You know, even at 75, after seeing him through most of his career from 50 on, see him still come back and do it again and sound velvety smooth. That's not the norm, I don't believe.
Well,
I think different vocal types have different challenges too.
Vocal styles, absolutely. One of the big problems that we have in modern music, and especially during the 70s, 80s, and 90s, not so much now, I think, because people are changing technology, adopting some of the newer technology, going direct more, playing behind the wall of shame.
Yeah, the baffle of shame.
Well, if that ride cymbal is cutting into that vocal mic that's 35 feet, right over yonder, and the house guy is having fits because he can't mute that.
Yeah, he can't squash it.
Yeah, it creates a mush, a very well-seasoned mush, that I don't think that guys like Tony Bennett, like some of the other vocalists you were mentioning, have to deal with quite so much. The sound pressure level on stage, while I'm not saying a big band can't hit it, usually don't.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
You don't have a guitar player that says, I really would like to hear a little more of myself. I think I'll just reach back here.
Get on those 4x12s.
If I turn up a little
crank
bit.
This up just a hair,
just
a little baby bit.
So Tony doesn't have that to deal with.
No.
And like Paul Anka, like Tony Bennett, some of these guys, they have worked it long enough. They know where this limit is and where that limit is, and they don't go past it.
Right.
In rock, a lot of guys go past that.
A lot of line stepping in there.
Yeah,
you're not wrong. Paul Anka, it's funny you bring up Paul Anka. What an extraordinary talent. One of the best writers. Big money just from all the songs he wrote for other people, let alone his own career.
Oh, yeah.
My mom loves that guy. Extraordinary. That was right down in Monterey on the Hill there. I got to ask.
Absolute perfectionist.
Yeah. A technician.
Yeah.
Just my God, like Neil Diamond level badass.
Oh, absolutely.
Just extraordinary. I got to ask you, as a sound guy, as a technical guy, and as a sound guy, and as a person who's certainly been involved in the making and, what an album should sound like, what do you think about some of these new I got to pick your brain about this, because I know I have certain very defined, definite opinions on this subject. Talk about the inclusion in recorded music today of certain technologies. Let me throw it out there, like an auto tune. What do you find for the place for something like that? Do you struggle with it? Do you think it's a good add to the mix?
Okay. Now I understand what was originally thought of to do, and this was kind of the thing that was tossed on the harmonizer when it first came out, the Eventide 910. The ability to shift a pitch and correct it in real time is a false goal.
Mm-hmm.
You either sing it right the first time or you don't.
Yeah.
You're not going to fix it with a toy. You're not going to fix it in the mix. You might. It might sound okay, but boy, is that going to get tiring about the 300th or 400th time you have to do that.
That's right.
So, as an effect, I dig it. I mean, I've heard urban, popular contemporary songs all over the place with it in there.
Absolutely.
And occasionally when I hear it, I go, wait a second. When they slide it in, it's kind of cool. It's like hot sauce. I like hot sauce. I just don't like it on everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
good way to put it.
And that's kind of the way, most effects, whether it's a 600 millisecond slap with a lot of regeneration, or or a chamber reverb, or a gated snare reverb. You know,
Well, fuck, it was great in the middle 80s. You had to have it. It was a mandatory effect. Now, feels a little dated.
it is dated.
So,
It's absolutely dated.
But it's. I think they're overusing. Maybe I think they're relying heavily on some of the real straightforward pop that's out there. It's like you said. They're kind of. It's the hot sauce thing.
Right.
It's a hot dog that's bathed in hot sauce, and it just seems a little rough for me. But I think you're right. There's tasteful ways to incorporate.
There's tasteful ways to incorporate it, but I'm a 64-year-old guy. They're not making that song for me.
No, they're not.
They're making it for my 14-year-old niece.
You're not wrong.
And if she digs it, and if her friends dig it, and they dance the hell out of it, great.
More power to them,
It's done
right?
its job.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I wanted to talk to you. We're running late, and I told you this would happen. I want to talk to you about the Cyclops you did with Herbie Herbert.
Right.
Production managing for Todd Rundgren. Fucking legend. Todd Rundgren, Utopia. Jesus God. Been doing this, 45 years? Still, I mean.
I want to say this about that. That was the only time I was a fanboy.
That right? No, dude, you're in front of a legend.
No,
That's
absolutely
fucking
fanboy.
legend right there.
Again, Jerry Pfeffer got me into that gig. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you. And
Jerry and Ann.
That you bring your A game when you're with Mr. Rundgren, or you don't get on deck.
No.
That his crew, his band are all top notch.
That's right.
I have nothing but the highest respect for him, his production, his management. Yeah. They are all top-notch people. I just, I was honored to be picked to help out with that little run.
He just recently put out some new thing too. I mean, the guy just doesn't stop. I remember singing his songs as a kid in the 70s.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, really.
Absolutely.
Fucking God. So, excuse me, I just cussed twice. I made it an hour without cussing, and Todd Rundgren made me just out of pure respect in that, it just.
God damn it, Vince.
See, I wish, thank you. See, I could be doing worse, but I'm trying my best. Also, I wanted to bring up Paul Rogers. Paul Rogers, man.
Paul Rogers.
And also your guitar taking for Rancid. What the heck is that?
Well, okay.
I just love it.
Yeah. See, here's our theme again. Guys in the Bay Area moving on, bringing up another guy behind him. Michael Rosen of East Bay Recorders, just down here and formerly of Fantasy Studios.
Yes, sir.
Which is where they were at the time. Was recording a little punk outfit out of San Francisco called Rancid, and he started tracking with them, and their guitars were just wonked. So he called me up, said, "Alan, come up. I need some help."
Yeah.
Well, I went up there and started cleaning the crud off the bridges and the frets and the fretboards, and it was. These guys had been playing
in bars and
riding them hard and putting them away wet every day. And so when I finally got the crud off the guitars and they were all loose, I just said, "Guys, we got to help you out. You like Gibsons, right?" Called our buddy Merle Saunders Jr. At Gibson Incorporated USA, and hooked them up. Got them hooked up with the real gear.
Really cool.
And so we tuned. We would go up every couple of 3 days when they would be getting ready for a new tracking session, and I'd tune the guitars, set up a couple extras, and go away. And it was a nice gig. The guys were very, very cool.
I'm not sure if you followed the career of the leader of that band, Tim Armstrong, but
sure.
I mean, my God, songwriter. I mean, as a modern songwriter, he's kind of almost working like a Paul Anka lane.
Yeah.
He does a lot of stuff for other pop stars.
Right.
For being Rancid's guy.
Right.
Big, huge beard. You know how he is. Is a kind of he's a little rough around the edges, but man, can he put some songs together.
Right.
I mean, I believe he's a multimillionaire just off his property, his royalties.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Other artists, yeah. And who would have known, at the time when you're talking about when they were largely a punk rock bar band.
Yeah.
And they were rocking band. I mean, they really brought the show.
Yeah.
But you really caught them in the early days. Listen, I want to ask you one more question. We deal with a lot of young people.
Sure.
coming in here. A lot of people coming out of these schools, kind of a non-traditional way, different than how we came up with it.
That's right.
And to their credit, they're different. They're different than we were. I mean, we were kind of clever guys, but these are smart young little cookies,
Right.
you know, kind of nerdish, and they're bringing it. It's an interesting thing.
Visionaries.
They're the future, frankly. They really are. You know, they're dealing with a different technology, a different process. The old men are here to show them the way to survive rock and roll.
Right.
They're showing us how to move the technology forward and keep bringing the bigger show and the better sound and the better lights and the better video and the whatever it is. What kind of advice as an old pro like yourself, somebody who really's been and done and worked through from lighting to staging to management to mixing to studio to teching
Promotion.
to promotion, I don't have time to do it all. I can't. Look how big of a show. I had to take 10 questions out.
We can keep going. I got nowhere to go.
I know. But they're all leaving right now. This is the analytics. If I get it under an hour, believe me, more people will watch your show. That's the
right.
secret to it. I forgot to tell you the analytics. That there's some math behind this. So let's wrap it up. But my God, brother, I mean, I have mad respect for you.
What would I say?
Give us some advice for the youngsters. So what do they got to do to survive this? Any good tips?
Absolutely. This was something that I came up with. I think I started to say this a little earlier, but this was something I came up with about midway through the run with Journey, because I would get men coming up to me with their teenage son or teenage daughter saying, "This is great. What you guys do is great. You know, what would you?" And my biggest advice out of all of it is learn how to get along with people.
It'd be a good hang.
This business, no matter what you do, is more about your relationships with people, how you get along with people that you may not ordinarily get along with.
Sure.
But you have to get along with them for tonight. You just have to get along with them for tonight, and your gig depends on that. Your artist gig depends on that, because you don't want somebody, and I can give you an example of somebody who pissed off a local crew, and but suffice it to say that technically you will know your stuff or you won't. There will be stuff that you don't know that you will learn as you go along. It's the old stuff you don't know that you don't know kind of thing.
Sure.
Those sort of things will work themselves out. But if you're an obnoxious, snarky, short-tempered, intoxicated, out of your mind, psycho, freakazoid, who can't get along with somebody that you just met, who just got off a bus, who God knows what his day was like the day before. If you can't get along with that person, or as the person getting off the bus, if you can't get along with the guys who are standing on that deck waiting to take your gear and put it up so you can have the big rock show, if you can't do that little bit, everything else you're going to do is going to be for shit. Like I said, the technical knowledge will either be there or it won't. You didn't get the job because you don't know how to tune a guitar or set up a drum kit or ring out a monitor system, or for the love of God, mix the first 3 songs without a sound check. Mm-hmm. You will have that technical base. If you don't have the humanist base within you, the charity of soul to let somebody have their little temper tantrum or what have you. If you don't have that little bit of humanity in you, it's going to be a rough gig.
It's excellent advice, Alan. This is why, first of all, this is why I wanted to have you in here. Your perspective has always been fascinating to me. Your history speaks for itself. You really are the universal guy in this game.
Thank you very much.
We got mad respect for you, mad love. Thank you for bringing the gifts. Thank you for coming in and sharing your stories with my friends. I'm going to get up here and show you some love because you're a brother.
You bet, Vince. My pleasure.
It's a lot that I've been able to do because you showed me the way. You showed a lot of us the way. And we got respect for you, brother. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you, everybody, for listening tonight.
It was really a treat to have you in here. Thank you, Al. Guys, I do it for you. We do it here because we believe in this game so hard. I mean, we love what we do. We're really lucky to be in a business we enjoy with really amazing people. So we bring them in here and we share them with you. and we share these things. And Alan's thoughts and experiences will be on tape forever for everybody to see. We could fall off the planet tomorrow, and all the people upcoming, they wanted to understand how the big rock shows happen. How did Michael Jackson go out and get it done and pull off the what is now what you call an everyday big rock show? It's guys like this young man right here that made it happen, and I just can't say what a treat it was to have Alan here. Next week we're going to do it again with an incredible cat. He's out on the road right now. He's going to come in and swing by, sit right in this seat. It's Eric Simnacher. He started out as this guy's got a great trajectory. I like him because he's going to cover two bases for me. Like Al covers all these bases we just talked about, but mostly I think of Al as a guitar tech, as a badass guitar technician, because that's the history we share together. But as it relates to this next week's guest, he's a rigger that started right here in one of our local big spots, the Shoreline Amphitheater, and worked through so many things and ended up becoming a video guy as video became omnipresent in the game. And is now out. He's went out with everybody from Madonna to Snoop Dogg, Wiz Khalifa. I mean, he does the big shows, Fall Out Boy, on and on and on. And he's gonna, in a break in his tour, he's gonna come in here and he's gonna tell us about that wild ride, how he got from right here in this region to touring the whole world. It's Eric Simnacher next week at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We do it every week. I want to thank my good friends for tuning in this night. All of my appointment viewers, John Del Rios and Susan Kearney's, all these lovely people. Thank you for tuning in. Of course, the one and only brother from another mother, godfather of this show, Charlie Zaricki. We love you, brother. Thank you for all you do for us. Thank you, Kyle Thomas, for being here, the great Michael Brown, and the rest of you kids. We're going to see you next week with Eric Simnacher. Until then, be good. Have a good night. Goodbye. Ha ha ha!